During midday in a poor village at the foot of the mountain, a group of children gathered on the winding dirt road. Their mocking laughter rang out loudly. In the middle of the circle stood a simple-minded young man, whom the villagers scornfully called the Fool. His clothes were in tatters, a frayed conical hat sat on his head, and his bare feet were caked in mud. The children showed no mercy. They threw dirt and pebbles at him, laughing hysterically as they jeered. "Hey, fool, dance for us! Dance so we can laugh!" If he dances, even the chickens will crack their beaks from laughing. The fool only bowed his head, trembling hands shielding it. He did not argue back, nor did he run away. He simply endured in silence. Adults passing by did not intervene. Instead, they sneered, "Leave him. A fool will always be a fool. He'll never amount to anything." Hearing this, the children grew bolder, shouting and mocking even more. At last, the fool trudged back to his shabby thatched hut on the edge of the village. Inside the empty house, bare but for a few dented pots and some torn mats, he slumped into a corner, buried his face in his hands, and sobbed bitterly. His parents had died when he was small. He lived alone, with no land, no trade, surviving only by begging. What he longed for most was not money, but a word of recognition, a look of compassion. Yet the whole village only despised him, treating him as nothing more than a laughingstock. One afternoon he sat by the roadside, holding out his ragged hat for a few coins. Passers-by ignored him. Suddenly, he overheard some people chatting excitedly as they walked past. "Soon our village will host a big folk storytelling festival. I heard whoever wins will receive a medal and prize money too." Hearing this, the fool's eyes lit up. He dropped his hat, leaving behind the meager coins, his heart pounding. Only one thought filled his mind. "If I win, no one will ever dare call me a fool again." He rushed back to his hut. In his hazy memory lingered a tale his mother had often told him every night when he was small, the flute that calls the moon. As a child, he would lie in her arms, captivated by her words. That story, its rhythm and melody, had etched itself deep into his heart like a small ember still glowing. This time, he resolved to retell that story at the festival. He believed that if he performed it well, people would see him differently. From that day on, he stopped begging. Day and night he practiced, murmuring the story aloud, rehearsing gestures. Sometimes he recited while walking, sometimes he stood before his reflection in the river water, practicing expressions. In the dim glow of an oil lamp, he looked up at the night sky and whispered, "Mother, I won't be called a fool anymore. I'll make everyone listen to me." The festival day arrived. The courtyard was packed with people. Banners fluttered. Drums beat loudly. One by one, contestants went on stage, each greeted with cheers and applause. When his turn came, murmurs spread through the crowd, followed by laughter. "Look, even the fool is competing? If he performs, it'll be a comedy show." The fool walked slowly, clutching the old flute he had once found. His heart raced, legs trembling. Before he could even speak, shouts erupted from the audience. "Get down, fool! Don't waste our time!" Sandals, stones, and bits of bark were hurled at the stage. He dodged a few, but suddenly a ripe tomato hit him square in the face. The crowd roared with laughter. Tears welled up. He covered his face and staggered off the stage. His dream of being acknowledged shattered in an instant, bursting like a soap bubble. That night, in his hut, he buried his head in a torn pillow and wept like a child. Only one anguished question echoed in his heart. Why? Why do they treat me this way? The next morning, as the sun peeked over the mountain peak, the fool dragged his weary steps out of the village. His heart was heavy with sorrow. He thought, "If I stay here, I will forever be a laughingstock. I must leave. Perhaps somewhere in the mountains there is a sage who can help me." For 2 days he wandered, lost in the thick forest. Wild grass cut his feet, hunger gnawed at his stomach, thirst parched his throat. He pushed on, but eventually collapsed right in front of an ancient temple hidden in a valley. In his faintness, he heard a gentle voice. "Brother, wake up." Opening his eyes, he saw a young novice monk about 15 years old with bright, kind eyes. The boy helped him inside the temple, gave him a bowl of hot rice and a cup of cool water. As he ate, tears streamed down his face. A middle-aged monk sat nearby, his face serene and kind. He softly asked, "Why have you come here, my child?" The fool broke down sobbing as he told his story. Losing his parents young, living in loneliness, being mocked as a fool, never acknowledged. He recounted the festival, how he had not even begun to play the flute before the crowd hurled tomatoes and laughter at him. His voice choked. I only wanted, just once, for others to truly listen to me. The master monk sat in silence for a while, then slowly stood. He went inside and returned with a polished bamboo flute, placing it in the fool's hands. If you truly wish to change your fate, practice this flute for 10 years. Do not ask why. After 10 years, I will tell you. The fool was bewildered. He had expected some quick way to gain talent, but instead received this strange instruction. Yet, seeing the monk's firm gaze, he dared not argue, only bowed his head in obedience. From that day on, every day he stood at the temple gate, blowing the flute. At first, the sound was harsh, broken, off-key. Children who passed by laughed aloud, travelers wrinkled their brows and shook their heads. Many nights he nearly gave up, but remembering the cold sting of that tomato, remembering the villagers' scornful eyes, he clenched his teeth and kept going. One day, a farmer carrying firewood passed by, hearing the awkward notes, and chuckled. "If you play like that, the moon will run away before it ever appears." The fool blushed with shame, but the kindly farmer patted his shoulder. "If you want, come to my house. I'll teach you the basics. I once learned the flute, not very well, but enough to get you started." From then, he studied with the farmer. After 3 months, having learned the fundamentals, the farmer said, "The rest must come from you. The flute is not just in the lips or the hands, but in the soul." So the fool returned to the temple gate, continuing day after day. By the first year, his flute began forming real melodies, no longer just noise. By the third year, the tones were flowing, enough to make birds on branches tilt their heads to listen. By the 5th year, the sound was rich with emotion, making passers-by stop, their hearts softened. By the 10th year, the flute's music was pure as a stream, vast as the wind, bright as the moon, touching the heart of anyone who heard it. From the fool whom everyone mocked, he had become an artist, though he himself scarcely realized it. One autumn morning, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree, playing his flute. The gentle music echoed through the mountains. By chance, a passing envoy with his retinue stopped, spellbound by the sound. When the tune ended, the envoy stepped forward, clasped his hands, and said, "Your flute stirs the soul. Please come with me to the capital and play for the king." In the royal palace before the golden throne, he lifted his flute. The music soared, carrying listeners into a dreamlike realm. The king was moved to tears. "Music such as this is a treasure of the nation." Then and there, the king presented him with a golden flute and bestowed upon him the title of Grand Music Master, to teach music in the court. From that day forward, he was no longer the fool scorned by all, but a master revered by thousands. And deep in his heart, he understood it was those 10 years of perseverance, the shame of ridicule, and the flute at the temple gate that had transformed his life. The pain of the past had become the strength that carried him to glory. Since then, the villagers often passed down the story of the fool of old. They reminded one another that in this world there are no true fools, only those who lack the perseverance to train themselves, the courage to rise above ridicule and failure. Every person is like an uncut gem, at first glance rough and seemingly worthless, yet with time, effort, and faith, that stone can be polished until its radiant light shines forth, dazzling all who behold it and earning admiration and respect.